of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll do the roll call.
Lenny Arnold.
Present.
Lisa Colorado.
Here.
Okay, Margaret.
Here.
Charles Mason has got a excused absence. Alexandria Bobo.
Here.
Matt Shar.
Yes, sir.
And Lloyd is also excused absence today.
All right. Next up on the agenda is the disclosure of any conflicts. Ms. Snyder? I don't either.
No.
All right. Item B says special presentation title. Is that just from the software?
Placeholder.
Yeah, we'll,
Still trying to figure the software out.
we'll fix that out there next one.
Let's see, next up is public comment. No public comment. Staff reports and announcements.
I'll just take this opportunity tonight just to kind of go over what we've got for you. Now, both of these items tonight are internal, pursuant to state law and federal law. They're text amendments. One's to the comprehensive plan and one is to the LDC. These have both been reviewed by staff as well as those at the federal level and those at the FDEM, Florida Department of Emergency Management. If you'll recall, a couple of years back, we added peril of flood and things like that. But this is just to get us in line with FEMA and their language. It's still in compliance with our comp plan and our land development code and our code of ordinances, but this is an effort on the city's part to maintain our CRS, community rating system, of 8. We're hoping to maybe go to a 7. If the lower we can go on that scale, the better the rates for flood insurance for everyone within the city. So that's kind of a little bit of a background on why we're doing this. First of all, to be in compliance with federal law, and second of all, to hopefully help our citizens out by either maintaining the 8 that we have on the CRS rating scale or possibly going to a 7. So we're here. We have I want to introduce Jay Castillo. He's our building official. He knows more about this than we do. So if you have any questions that we can't answer in the planning department, we'd be happy to have him pinch hit for us, okay? Thank you.
Sounds good. Let's see, board member reports and announcements. Oh, did you have anything?
Nope.
Can I just say, I'm sorry,
Yes.
I might have missed it when, Randy, what is the top and what is the bottom rating? In other words, the best rating or the worst rating you can have?
So from what I understand, the 10 would be the worst. 10 is somebody that does not work towards any of the different things given by CRS,
Okay.
towards FEMA and those type of things, and the best is a 1.
Okay. So even though we have an 8, you think that citizens are still eligible for premium discount?
Yes, as the 8. With what we're introducing, we're hoping that it works on a point system. So there's different areas. They look at special flood hazard zones. They'll look at what we do citywide for areas that are non-residential or undeveloped, like our parks and those type of things. And then we gain points for that. And then they base on what we do with those points, and that gives you your rating. And so there's a lot of different programs. There's outreach programs where you can put out flyers and different things, or things that we have on our website to help people for emergencies, like for hurricanes, or what to do in a flood situation, or who can I contact insurance-wise, how can I find insurance. So a lot of different things. So we participate in those, and we do as many as we can because we're a smaller community. I don't know if we could ever really reach a 1 in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
Typically a 1 is larger areas that have a lot of different aspects and can reach all those things. There's just some things we just don't have. So we'll never really reach that, but we'd like to we've been at 8 for at least since I've been here, and I've been here for 7 years. We'd like to try to bump it down and get it down to 7 and see. I don't know how much that is in savings, but it is supposed to be across the board to help all residents in Cocoa Beach get a lower premium.
So we do have a mechanism in place, because this is pretty significant for the people who live here in Cocoa Beach, that they could get a premium discount on their flood insurance. So we have a mechanism that we can disseminate that information to. I know a lot of people they don't go on our website.
Well, the way I understand it does work too, is that the residents don't necessarily have to, for example, when they're talking with their insurance agent or whatever, if they have a mortgage along that, like myself, I have a mortgage, you don't have to say we are part of CRS, where that Cocoa Beach will just automatically get it, and anybody that has it for those residents, it's through the system and it lowers it. I'm not real updated on how they work it on their side.
Right.
I just know they have us do all these different things to try to get it as the best rating we can on, and then they apply the different ratings according to their, their system.
It's transparent to the app, to the homeowner.
Right.
Yes.
That we just need all the homeowners to get on the website so they can find this information out.
Yeah, and put it out, and we try to put that out on the, even on Facebook, we can try to put it on Facebook and those type of things, and, let people know, hey, anything in flood insurance, looking for help, come to our website. That may be something we address, and for that matter, may give us some more points as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Colorado, anything from your end?
No.
Ms. Bobo? Okay. Let's see, next up is the consent agenda, approval of the minutes from April the 1st and June the 3rd.
Hopefully everybody had a chance to read them this time. I'm down here.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion? Or-
I motion to approve the minutes of April 1st and June 3rd.
I second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, or any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. So next up, we have no unfinished business. Next up is new business. First up is the text amendment ordinance 1689. Then next will be the comprehensive plan ordinance 1688.
Okay,
Sorry.
first one we got on Judge Harris
just-
ordinance,
Lauren, just one second.
Just that order. Are we supposed to approve the agenda as well? I don't know how this works. Like, we usually do, but it's not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there are no amendments to the agenda.
don't have to?
Yeah, so we don't
Okay,
have to
thanks.
approve the agenda. That's right.
Sorry, go ahead.
right? Ordinance 1689, in the staff brief on there, staff findings number 2 kind of answered that question. We were notified by FDEM, Rebecca with FDEM, that if we didn't make these changes, there's a good chance that the city's classification could retrograde back to a Class 9. So they've kind of put us on notice that way already, that we potentially could, if these changes aren't followed through with. So everything that you see in front of you in this ordinance came from FDEM as their recommendation. So that's the Florida Department of Emergency Management. So those are reflect their recommended changes in order to keep our code compliant with the FEMA program and the National Flood Insurance Rating System. The page 2 of the ordinance, section 2 of 52, basically what we have is an amendment to specific sections in the definition part of the code to meld it with the federal program so that we do away with some of the inconsistencies and make the definitions more in line with the FEMA program, the way it is, the FEMA model ordinance that we're required to kind of model after. Exhibit B, so it amends parts of section 3 related to finished floor elevation, some minor text improvements, building heights. and really isn't being messed with. It's mostly the finished floor, dressing the finished floor grades and where you begin your measurement for height and things like that. So it's clarifying some of those things. And then Exhibit C, application for variance. Let's see what that is. Waivers and the, what do you want to call it? Exceptions, I guess you might say, that a Board of Adjustment would hear for projects that have to comply with some of the FEMA programs. So it kind of outlines where those are appropriate. And then the last one, which is the major changes, was in Chapter 7, the flood damage and prevention part of the code, which is part related to stormwater and flood control section of the code. So that had the bulk of the changes in it. Once again, these changes didn't really originate from us. They were recognized during it's kind of like, I don't know what the time period is, but every so many years, the city goes through a review to kind of check to make sure we're in compliance with the FEMA program. And our time for review was in 2023. They recognized these changes that were needed. And then staff, Jay has been working with them all last fall till even now to get these changes ironed out and recognized into the code so that we can continue to qualify for the best flood insurance rating for the citizens here in Cocoa Beach. So unless you got questions, or Jay's the expert on the code, so we'll ask him to answer questions if you got some.
I just have a question on page 9. I wasn't quite sure on number 69, development, which is now number 72.
Which page are you on?
It's at page 9 of 52 at the bottom. I noticed that in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line, we have crossed out construction and installation, which I assume was in the old ordinance, and replaced it with building, construction. We've also crossed out alteration. But then if you go down to the second line from the bottom, alteration is back in again, and building construction is crossed out. I kind of lost the thread on that.
Once again, this is kind of how the DEM reviewed it. I think when we read it, we didn't see an issue with that point.
Again, a lot of these minor changes were hashed over more than they probably should have been with them. So I think we're probably okay when we just say any man-made change to unimproved real estate, including but not limited to buildings and other structures. And I think this other stuff about construction, the building construction was just a better way of saying it, building construction and demolition or removal of a structure.
So are you suggesting we put in, this includes, but is not limited to?
So I think I can help
Go ahead.
resolve. So I just needed to review it again just to get my bearings. So the first sentence, that's not a completely new sentence there in chapter or in paragraph 72. It excludes construction, installation, and alteration from the definition of what development is, right? That's clear.
what it
That
seems-
last sentence there brings in what was excluded previously and says any installation, alteration, renovation, or material change in use or appearance of the structure or in the land itself, right, which can also include the division of land into lots, a change in the intensity or the use of the land, an increase in the number of dwelling units or structure of the land. So you're taking any construction, any installation, any alteration, and you're moving, though you're not saying that's development unless it satisfies the criteria of that last sentence. So in order for an installation to be considered development within the definition in our land development code, it would have to be an installation that has a material change in the use or appearance of the structure or in the land itself. If it's a minor installation or alteration, it's not going to be categorized as development activity under our land development code. That's why it's excluded at the top and it's included at the bottom.
Well, building construction is included at the top but excluded at the bottom. That's what threw me off a little bit.
Yeah, so any building or construction is going to be considered development. I think what the push was is in order to satisfy the requirements of the new program, the feds probably want the city to categorize any building or construction activity as development, whereas the standard's probably a little less lax with regards to an installation, alteration, or renovation. Because those are only going to count as development if it meets that standard in the last sentence there.
Yeah, I think they felt, and Gary, if I might, that construction was a little bit too broad in the first sentence because there's some construction, fair amount, that doesn't require
A building.
FEMA regulation. So that doesn't qualify for FEMA regulation. So we just wanted to make that a little bit clearer, and Garrett did a great job of describing how that happens. So.
Oh, don't get me, I'm happy it got included.
Okay.
I would just like to see it included in the bottom, too.
Okay.
Any other questions? Comments, Ms. Snyder?
I think that was it. Most of it, quite frankly, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't understand, but that popped out at me.
Yes.
Just a couple of questions. Like on page 19, line item 152, the date, what is the significance of that date in that defining new construction? Just wonder if it seems like it would make more sense to just say it's on page 19, line 152, new construction. It's categorized new if it's after June 16th of 1972. I'm just wondering what the significance of that particular date is versus just saying if it's older than X number of years or something like that.
Something maybe must have happened.
Southern Building Code, I believe, came in and was adopted. And again, you'll notice it's just for purposes of Chapter 7, which is our stormwater. It doesn't apply to the rest of our LDC.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the significance of that. And then, of course, it evolved from the Southern Building Code to the International Building Code that we have now.
And also Florida.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. And do we know for sure that they confirm if these changes are made, that it would be in compliance to
Yeah, I
get
think
to
I
a
asked
8
that.
again?
Look at the very last page of your packet. I think I included an email.
As far as the rating, I think there's two parts that, one, they confirmed it and talked with Rebecca, right? She's who we talked with and went through it, and she represents with FEMA and them, all those different ones. And so that's who we work directly with to help us with getting the wording and everything correct on it. And then the second part, until I get this approved and then I can submit back to them, that's when they will review everything and then give us the ultimate, whether we made it to a 7 or, I mean, I don't see us going worse than the 8, but I'm hoping we'll get the 7, and we'll find that out usually within like 3 to 4 weeks of when I turn the whole package into them.
So she has seen it and
Yes.
I guess,
Yeah, she was fully a
agrees
part of
with
it, and I had
everything
sent it
and
to the
assuming-
CRS representative as well. who
assuming
has
it'll
rep-
stay the same or maybe possibly get better.
She was
Yes.
a very active part in the rewrite.
Thanks.
Yes.
Anything else, Ms. Colorado?
No, that's it.
Okay, Ms. Bobo?
I have a question about 136. It's redefined lowest floor. And so I think my big overriding question is, does the changed definition of lowest floor, would that affect the building heights caps that we currently have in place? Because lowest floor used to mean the floor with the lowest elevation within a building or structure, including sunken living rooms, basements, or uninhabitable spaces. And now the proposed change is the lowest floor of the lowest enclosed area of a building or structure, including basement, but excluding any unfinished or flood-resistant enclosure other than a basement usable solely for vehicle parking, building access, or limited storage, provided that such enclosure is not built so as to render the structure in violation of the non-elevation requirements of the Florida Building Code, or ASCE 24. This kind of goes back to a matter that we recently visited, where we had a residential property and they wanted to build like a parking garage under the structure. It would be open, but then the first and second floor would be above that and would effectively, I think, would have made it like 45 feet tall, which was similar to what we allow for commercial buildings. So my concern is that this would not, by some other means, allow permission to extend the height of buildings from where they're currently at.
What we're addressing here is something we've referred to in past as frangible construction and wash-throughs, pass-throughs, similar to what we're doing with City Hall, to be honest with you, because that's parking and all, and frangible construction on the first floor. The first habitable space is really the second floor. Same concept here. They're saying that if it's frangible construction, it won't violate FEMA's rules and regulations. And that's pretty standard because we've got a lot of special high hazard flood areas, things like that. We've got a wash through. If we really had a storm, it's going to come over that ridge and get into the downtown parts that are normally in an X zone, similar to what City Hall is. And if we don't build them up, that first floor is going to flood. And yes, pursuant to the rules that and the language we currently have in the comp plan, as well as in the land development code, that point that we measure the height from can change. Because it has to be, Jay's code, building code requires it to be 1 foot above the base flood elevation, whatever that is. Whether it's in a special flood hazard area, if it's in a flood zone X, which is out of the 500-year floodplain, then it's 18 inches above the crown of the road. We used to do the whole city above the crown of the road, and that's how we kind of got into the situation we're in now, because we have a lot of soup bowls, if you will. But yes, you have picked up on it. It can fluctuate that height, that ultimate height, because it moves the point at which we start measuring. The bottom line is if we always measure from the same point, if we measure from the crown of the road, and they had to put in a wash through of that, say it's a 35-foot building height. Now that 35-foot building height is 27.
Oh, so they would drop the building
As it
height
was in the
or
past,
accommodate-
yeah, they would have lost, they would be trying to do a good thing by doing the wash through, a sustainable thing, but they would have been penalized for it. Because 27 feet, takes away a floor. And their ability to pay for this development, because that's the only way they get paid back is number of square footage or number of units. So we changed that several years back in both the comprehensive plan and the land development code to the BFE plus a foot. The BFE being, and we also put in their language that they could also put in the wash throughs, so that these buildings have a better chance of surviving a storm surge. Okay, and if they do have a storm surge, it's usually through parking lots with frangible construction, maybe some storage, but nothing habitable.
So
Make sense?
I'm just trying to understand if this would have some unintended consequences of allowing residential homes to build parking garages under their structures when they become vacation rentals and things like that, and allow them to build up to heights when we previously had intentionally voted that down. Would this override something like that?
I don't know that we have any requests for that, maybe one that has never come to fruition, but most of the homes built here are slab on grade. So,
I mean, it's just that in that case, had we granted it for one, it would have pretty much covered the entire city of Cocoa Beach.
and that's one of the things that may be an unintended consequence, but again, I don't see it. It's expensive to do, first of all. And I don't see many single-family homes requesting. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've seen any except for one that has kind of fallen by the wayside. And that was going to be a prefab hurricane structure to 200-mile-an-hour type of home. So I don't think we're opening the floodgates here, but the reality is, and it's mostly in the commercial areas and the non-single-family home areas where this would take place. And again, we're doing it on our own city hall.
So does this, so, I mean, to your point, it probably would be taken advantage of more by commercial businesses, and they would say, well, now we'll take that cap because now we're going to build this unenclosed structure under the buildings, so effectively raising the height of buildings. Is there some kind of cap on this unenclosed space? I mean, as to its height?
Well, you're not going to go in and you're not going to put in a 20-foot wash-through, if that's what you're asking. I'm trying to, I would defer to the chairman, because I think he had a comment on this.
Yeah, I mean, this just defines where that lowest floor is.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the overall height of the building. It's, the overall height of the building is measured from the base flood elevation plus 1 feet. That's where you start measuring. So if you've got a 20-foot wash-through, the ultimate top of the building does not change. It's still measured from that base flood elevation plus 1 foot.
It says, or other federally mandated height, and a height of a 20-foot wash-through is not a federally mandated height. And most people aren't going to, like I said, it gets expensive, I'll defer to Jay, but I haven't seen any at all on single-family residential, but it could affect some of our commercial buildings.
Yeah, it could, but I still think ultimately, and like Chairman was saying, is it doesn't change the overall height. With the lowest floor, you've got different special flood elevation areas, so you might have VE, or like he had alluded to earlier, X, and they have different elevations set by FEMA. So along South Atlantic beachfront, their elevation is at 13, and 10 to 13, it changes, and then that lowest elevation is going to be set according to 1 foot according to that, and they're not allowed to have anything habitable in that area, right? It has to be something that's either a garage or your equipment or something along that, or storage, right? And it's just saying that when you go to build your house, you can't have anything within that area. Now you can go higher. And then when that comes to an architect and to us, you've got to figure out with the architect on how to build that within the constraints of our overall height, right? This doesn't give them carte blanche just to go, hey, I'm at 15, we're going to go 20, and now I'm going to build a house that's 30, so I'm going to be a 65-foot house. No. If that answers a little better.
I think so.
I think your worry on this particular definition doesn't affect that.
I just don't want to preempt anything we have in place.
No, no. And it shouldn't, and that was some discussions with Rebecca and along those lines. And this was just more FEMA language to make sure we're defining what needs to be defined. So, gosh forbid, we have a storm or something along that line, now all the processes are in, or a substantial damage or substantial improvement, then I can cover these and watch over these to make sure people do the proper flood things to help try to keep overall flood insurance down.
Any additional questions? All right. Do I have a motion on item number 1, text amendment, ordinance 1689?
I just have one more question. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Okay. On this 137 manufactured home, was defined as a detached dwelling unit or office unit transported to the site in large pre-manufactured sections and assembled on site and on a permanent foundation. Proposed change to a structure transportable in one or more sections, which is 8 feet or more in width and greater than 400 square feet, which is built on a permanent integral chassis and designed for use with or without a permanent foundation when attached to the required utilities. The term manufactured home does not include a recreational vehicle or park trailer. Would it include like a shipping container?
It would have to be. It would have to be permanent. It would have to be put onto a foundation. So like the definition's talking about, and maybe if you got a, you know, if it's on wheels and has a chassis, then that's the difference between the two. So a shipping container could be made into a house, so to speak, but it would have to be a foundation, it'd have to be permanent. You couldn't come and back a truck up to it and drive it away. But yeah, because that's, we don't,
A manufactured home is something that's defined by the federal government. It has HUD, it's HUD approved. You know, there's other, the term is set by federal standards, where Jay's right. I mean, anything else that's other material has to go through Jay as a building official and be documented structurally. That, you know, it's like a shipping container is like a 2x4. It's an element of construction that has to be documented, engineered, and made part of the design and plan, just like a stick-built home.
or a block home or whatever.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
At this time, I think because this is a consideration of an ordinance, I'd recommend that we open a public hearing. I know no one's here. But open a public hearing for any public comment, and then we can close the public hearing and
All right,
go through that way.
all right. So we'll open it up for public comment.
All right, seeing none, you can
None.
call for a motion to
So-
close the public hearing.
We'll close the public hearing. Do I have a
So
motion?
moved.
Second? Second. That's to close the
Public hearing.
Public
Yep.
hearing.
Yeah. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Now, do we have a motion on text amendment?
A motion in reference to ordinance 1689, I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the city commission with a recommendation of approval. The planning board finds that amending the city's land development code, chapters 1, 3, 4, and 7 to meet the prerequisite requirements of the NFIP community rating system is necessary for the city of Cocoa Beach to maintain or improve its current CRS 8 rating.
All right. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes 5-0. Next up is the comprehensive plan, ordinance 1688.
What we have here, ordinance 1688 is an ordinance seeking to basically extend our planning horizon into the future. As we were preparing to go through and do a comprehensive plan, we learned that the city has been in the planning board, you know, and the city commission and staff have been pretty instrumental in making sure that our comprehensive plan has been timely updated. And in 2021, 22-ish, you guys helped and the city did an update to include parallel policies for parallel flood and some other mandated changes that had occurred in state law. And when that got sent to the state, it went through what they call the evaluation appraisal report process, which basically went through and meant that we met that required mandate a little bit early maybe, but we met that required mandate, which made our next update not necessarily due until 2028. And as we got looking at things at that time, we probably should have changed the title of the plan to extend the planning horizon, but we didn't. In 2023, last year, a new law change that requires a 10-year planning horizon, a 20-year planning horizon. And then to add to that the fact that our plan date is kind of geared to time out in 2025, it kind of became more important that we kind of go through this update process, meet the horizon update, and just do a minimal review at this time necessary to extend the planning horizon. So what you have in front of you is an ordinance that seeks to, it goes through the plan, updates some of the definitions that were in there, because part of the update, the state just no longer wants to see us just change the time period. We got to give supporting documentation as to support the extended time period, like population projections and code. But in the same time, they also want us to see us make sure that our plan is consistent with other policies and plans that are in place. So what I've done, as I went through the ordinance, I noticed some of the definitions that were tied to the land development code. There was a few inconsistencies in those definitions, so this draft shows making a few definition changes to match the land development code so the two are compatible together. And then a bulk of the change is in the population data, updating the numbers and the projections that were in the existing comprehensive plan and projecting those out into the future. As you can see in some of those numbers, the city, we reached our peak population in 2000, which was 12,482. And then since that time, the city kind of, I guess it was probably the downturn of the space program at the time, the city saw quite a decrease in its population. We reached another peak in 2018, we reached 11,703, but then COVID came along and some other things. We've kind of been holding steady since about 2000 to present. And so taking those numbers and projecting them out, this particular data and using the growth projection rates and the growth rates that I had available at the Census Bureau, our projected growth rate using their current growth rate numbers would be about 11,877 people in 2045, which is still approximately 500 people under the peak of what the city experienced back in 2000. Granted, we still have an influx, a fluctuation of the daily visitors and transient lodging type and the tourist type industry has continued probably to climb a little bit. But those aren't significant numbers in relationship to the issues that I'm looking at here in like our levels of service and stuff like that. So I've updated, there's a few definitions and some additions to the Section 2 coastal management element to make that more in line with the Indian River Lagoon system. And we have the Indian Lagoon Management Plan, which has something additional information that maybe wasn't available when this code was drafted. So I've added some sections in there like listed plants and listed animal species and correlated the introduction to kind of meld with that plan. Again, in the housing section 4, population pretty much was the update there. There's a few policy changes. Some of the codes that were either reflected plans or anticipated accomplishments within a certain time frame, I tried to capture those and change them to extend into the future or recognize that those had been achieved when I came across them. One of the major changes that I noticed is that back when the original comp plan was developed, the city of Cocoa Beach was either had a partial water system or was partial water purveyor for potable water. So right now, all of our potable water is managed through the city of Cocoa. So I made some changes there to match the city of Cocoa's comp plan, including updating the level of service that city that we contracted with the city of Cocoa. Mobility element, once again, working with the city engineer, updated that to reflect some of the accomplishments that have been made and to update some of the, like work with the TPO, state FDOT to make the city more resilient, especially elevating the road surfaces or portions of SR 520. That's something that they're working on with the engineering department's working on. So that got updated. And then the rest of the changes in the CI, capital improvement part of the plan, it's basically updating levels of service standards to match the standards that are out there and adopted in other policies and codes today. So that's pretty much it. The biggest change in that is the design storm event. I think that used to read 10-year frequency for a 24-hour duration. And so it basically standard a 25-year storm, 24-hour duration event. So that's probably a bigger change there. Once again, potable water level of service went from 141 in the current plan. COCO is now saying that it's 122.41 gallons per capita is the level of service currently. So then the old code had a CIP index that was several years old. And so I'm suggesting that even though the count plan basically adopts the most current CIP, year to year is automatically adopted by reference, thought it was best to, since we're doing this, go ahead and throw in the latest CIP tables just so it's a little more current than reflecting something back in 2015. So that's basically the nut of, the bulk of the changes that I think are needed in order to request the state to extend our comp plan. Also, we have updating I forget that, there's transportation maps and other things in here that will update that. Their transportation element has maps like current road maps dated 2015, extended 2025. So we're changing the dates on the maps and tables there to match, like the last page shows the comp plan. That we will make I'm suggesting we separate that as a separate exhibit if it's not today. We'll make that comprehensive plan a map, and then we'll add a signature block to it to make it recognizable as the approved copy. So that I'm recommending that we add a table to that to reflect the chairman of the planning board and the mayor's signature, et cetera, once it goes through the approval process, so that those entities will sign it and recognize it more as the official approved comp plan map. Let me grab one more thing. Oops, hold on this one. Let me see if I got it in my pocket here. No. So the one thing that's not reflected right here that I think I left out of this picture is updating the dates on the top of the different maps that say 2015, 2025. So the update will include changing all of I think there's one picture in there of the comp plan on page 7, where you see 2025, 2045. That also will be applied to the various road maps, like current road, there's a map in there, current road design, current like bus route, things like that. So those maps that are in the land transportation element will be updated to reflect those current dates as well in the existing plan. So, any questions?
Any questions? Ms. Snyder?
I have just a few. Under the definitions, the first one, average daily traffic, it says an average number of vehicles crossing a specific point on a roadway on an average weekday, and then everything else is crossed out. What determines an average number of vehicles crossing a specific point on a roadway?
What page are you on?
The page 4, Exhibit A definitions. First one, average daily traffic.
Number of vehicles crossing a specific point in the roadway on an average weekday.
What,
It's actually at an average day, but yeah, but I think that's what it means on an average, well, it does say average weekday. So they put out a traffic counter, how many cars go over that traffic counter in a X amount of time.
okay, then can we put that in, like, for example, it crossed out was the most recent official traffic counts from FDOT. Can we put something in that is acceptable? In other words, that's what shall be accepted as representing the average daily traffic for a specific roadway. So can we say, based on somebody smarter than me has got to say what
Well,
that is, a traffic
right.
count by such and such? You follow what I'm saying?
It's pretty generic, the way it's intended to be, but right now, what you see there is exactly what's in the Land Development Code today. That's adopted by ordinance in the definition
The
of
blue
LDC.
part that's crossed out?
What?
The blue part that's crossed out is in the land development code?
That's not in, see that little, where it says average daily traffic, it's got the superscript number 2?
Yeah,
That means that definition comes from the Land Development Code.
okay.
So I took the Land Development Code definitions and put them in the comp plan to make sure they're matched.
Okay, so, but can we add then? Can we add to
Once again, if,
something, by a recognized traffic counter? Because this, to me, this is just an open statement that it's not determined by anything.
I think you can if you want, but then we need to go back and look at the LDC and make sure that we don't need to make a change there.
And I don't have a problem with that, but just as long as we know we have one major road in the city, and that's A1A.
Right.
And those are constantly updated by DOT in segments. As a matter of fact, you might find it hard to believe, but some of the segments up north actually have less traffic on them now than they did 15 years ago. But they are updated quite regularly, and that's what we use on those. Anything that we have in terms of development, Lauren's right, we're going to put counters out there, and they're going to get the average daily trips on these roadways and update them. It's kind of hard to keep track of them. But I don't have a problem with putting in some language to the effect of
Recognize an industry-recognized traffic count mechanism.
for
Whatever
those
the-
areas
Whatever the
which
wording
are-
is. I just think I just need that sort of hanging out there. We need something to finish it.
for development or something like that, which is normally when we would look at traffic, when traffic studies are being done for new development, that's what they're going to do. But we can add that into the definition if that's the will of the board, so.
Okay, and my other question, do we ever have seasonal defined anywhere for the time period? I mean, I see a lot of things that say seasonal traffic, seasonal people, seasonal. Do we ever define as defined by whatever, if we have it and if we don't? Should we or not? I mean, seasonal to me is November to April. But that's me.
Oh, you mean like designing when they take the counts?
Yeah, and no, not when they take the counts. No, I've moved away from
I
that.
think for the federal or state routes and stuff, we're at their mercy,
No, I've moved away. I'm happy that Randy said we're going to change. Now I'm sorry, I should have been clear. Now I'm on page 5, introduction.
Okay.
And there's, all of this changing conditions deals with seasonal. It gives but we never seem to define seasonal. It's sort of like understood, but I'm not sure what everybody understands. I mean, like I said, I understand it to be November and to April, but somebody may think that's not right. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand, I think, but there's probably more than one season going on, you know, I mean,
I think they're
like
referring, I'm sorry.
where I'm at, you have the season with all the tourists come in, then you have this, you can call
Snowbird.
another season when all the snow bunnies come back, you know, that are renting out their unit. during
Right,
the-
and it's usually, they pretty much, with the exception, from what I've seen, with the exception of weekends in the summertime, when we get a lot of people that come to the beach, they pretty much run around the same time. And again, my thing is November to April, but I've never seen it defined. Maybe it's not important that it not be defined, but I've just never seen seasonal. I've seen statistics based on seasonal, but I say to myself, okay, where do they get those statistics from?
The way I'm reading it, I could be complete, but the way I'm reading it is seasonal is just not a permanent resident. So it's seasonal all year round. It's just to what season do you see what I'm saying?
You're talking about, you define seasonal as snowbird season, as opposed to non-snowbird season.
Okay, yeah, it could be looked at that simple, but I think in what this is looking at is seasonal is anybody who's not a permanent resident. Their season may be snowbird season, or it may be the summer season, or whatever that does that make sense? I think they're comparing someone who's not a permanent resident to someone who is. That's
Well, like
their-
I see here, 12,000 seasonal residents. By the way, is 3,850 average daily tourists is not a typo? 3,850 average daily tourists?
Now, that may repeat from day to day, but on a daily basis, that's.
An average?
Yes.
I thought that was a typo when I saw it.
We'll go back to the traffic counts in a minute, but that's, because they're
So
all looking for restaurants and hotels.
Yeah, I thought it was lower than that.
you think 3,850 average daily tourists is low? Wow.
And that's not even including Saturday and Sunday.
But you notice that was in the, that's not new text. I didn't have data to update that or correct that, so I left it alone.
So anyhow, that's what I was just wondering about. I see about 12,000 seasonal residents, and then I talk about seasonal winter and seasonal, and what
We
do define
can make
seasonal?
the attempt, I think a lot of this is kind of a product of what we know the year looks like. We know when these residents are going to come, the snowbirds, the vacation, the spring break, this type of thing. I just warn that if we get too, I'll call it cute in trying to define seasons, remember, our consultants are going to look at this when they're doing traffic studies. It may benefit them, it may benefit us. I don't want to get too explicit on how we define seasonal, because these are some terms that they use in their traffic studies when they're looking at a new project. But we will take a look at it. I don't know what the outcome will be, but we can certainly take a look at trying to define maybe a season or several seasons.
I just see the word thrown around so much, and
I understand.
and you ask 15 different people, and they'll give you 15 different answers, so.
We'll
Okay,
give it a shot. How's
thank
that?
you.
Ms. Colorado?
I don't really have any comments to extending the dates and updating the populations and getting it all synced up with LDC, all that, and updating. I'm just wondering, we originally, I don't know, way back, a while ago, talked about doing a comp plan update with, our latest vision, the community vision and all that. So and then now that we have this 10-year plan, 20-year plan, I don't know that it meets the intent of having a 10-year plan and a 20-year plan by just changing the dates. So I feel like we still need to have some kind of update to the comp plan to do the 10, 20-year real plan and update. I don't have problems with the maps and updating the dates right now if we have to. I don't know if there's an advantage to doing that versus just waiting until we actually do a change to,
Glad you asked.
okay.
On my first departure, we had budgeted last year for a third-party review of the entire comp plan to do just what you're asking. That number did not survive budget for whatever reason. We have it in this year, again, for next year, so I would anticipate, and I'm going to defend it to the best of my ability, I would anticipate for a third-party person to come in and do just what you're saying, Ms. Colorado, is to do a comprehensive look at everything. This is being done primarily for the reason, like I said, our EAR is not due until 2028. But we took the opportunity of having to advance and update the horizon to the 10 and 20-year timeframes to take a look at some of the definitions, some of the minutia in here that we knew we needed to update anyway, and do that. And that's what you're looking at tonight. But rest assured, if I have anything to do with it, we're going to try to protect that money to bring in a consultant who can sit down and put a second or third or fourth pair of eyes on this entire comprehensive plan and get us ready for an update prior to 2028 all of a sudden, obviously. So that is in the works, and so far it has survived the budget process.
Okay, and so
Okay.
that'll be the time to provide inputs on, our long-term.
That's the time we will be bringing the comp plan to you one element at a time, probably.
Yeah, okay,
So, yes.
thanks.
Any other questions?
I just,
I did have one, just, I guess, clarification. On page 16, on-site storm water management?
16?
Yes.
On the table?
Yes. The second thing there, on-site stormwater management. There seems to be some extra words or something.
Pardon?
Retention of the first 1 inch of rainfall for sites less than 100 acres. Or the retention of the first 1/2 inch of rainfall for drainage areas of 100 acres or more. And then it goes on to say, of rainfall runoff for areas of 1 acre or more. Is that seems out of place, or I couldn't follow it. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think it's 1 inch for 100 acres, and for less, 100 acres or less would be the first 1/2 inch. And we also are making a few changes to the stormwater master plan right as we speak that has to go back to the commission as well. And we'll make sure that this language matches that.
Okay, yeah, just it's
But
either.
it's a good catch.
There's either something extra in there or something not in there that could help clarify that.
I look at it this way, when I'm speaking, it's just like when I'm speaking, sometimes my tongue gets tangled around my eye teeth and I can't see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Happens when we're writing too, so, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? All right,
I was looking at the language that's crossed out up above it. So looks like that the main change there, we're not intending to change what was there on that part of it, so we'll make sure that's consistent. And we'll have to mold it with the new stormwater plan too. So there may be changes yet to it as that goes forward. But the big change is that 10-year, 24-hour storm event
right.
is, our understanding is it's a 25, not 10 now. That's the big change. Didn't intend to change anything else.
Okay. All right,
The one, like I said, the one thing in here that isn't is that anywhere where we have maps and other pictures and whatnot, those changes we'll update those maps to include current 2024, 2045. So instead of 2015, 25, we'll update those to have that 20-year horizon on all those pages as well.
okay. All right, we'll open it up to public comment. We have no public comment. Do I have a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Passes 5-0. All right, do I have a motion on comprehensive plan ordinance 1688?
Okay. I'll make a motion. In reference to ordinance 1688, I move to forward ordinance 1688, amending the city's comprehensive plan. I would add to include updated and approved maps and tables that we talked about. It's on there. To extend its planning horizon from 2025 to 2045, and an accompanying EAR report to the city commission with a recommendation of approval.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All, any opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, next up is general public comment. We don't have any. Anything else, Randy?
You may have seen an article on Fox News this week about the demo of the Weston site. We are trying to stay on that. There's quite a bit of debris out there already. They are separating as they go. Just got to remember, it was 15 acres and 500-room hotel, so it takes a while. We're about 5 to 6 weeks out from them finishing that now. We're going to try to push them, but we do know we're in hurricane season, which we spend 6 months in a year. There are some contingency plans should we have a storm coming in, but we are praying that for the next 5-6 weeks we stay clear and that site is cleared. We will have a meeting tomorrow with the contractors and all to start discussing timing of permitting and actually seeing something new go in out there. So as much as we are able to at next month's meeting, we will bring you that information. And there was one other thing we wanted to, Corey and the planning department have been doing a great job on our vacation rentals. We want to bring you an updated report so that you'll kind of know where we stand with that. And also, if you could be thinking about it, we're going to be asking you, pursuant to direction by the city commission, which zoning category or zoning categories you think we need to go into next to start regulating and registering vacation rentals. I'm going to put something in your mind right now. I'd probably say RM1, RM2. So we got to do it a little bit at a time because it's taking us a while. So just kind of food for thought for the next meeting in August. Okay, thank you.
All right.
So I have a question about that, if it's
Yes.
appropriate to take it now. So, if there's a residence that's not, maybe they've fenced off a portion of their house and added a door to get in and out, and they rent, a room that has a bathroom and a kitchen or something, is that considered a rental, or is it,
There are
meaning they're not renting out their whole house?
There are two options in the single-family residential district. One is rent the whole house. The other one is rent a room, like a bedroom, and with all the use of the other common areas within the residence. Corey's more up to speed on this than I am right now.
Short-term
but
or
that's where we're
long-term,
at.
I guess?
That would be short-term.
But it has to be connected to the house.
Right.
It
When-
can't be a mother-in-law's apartment out in the backyard or something like that.
Do they register that? Do they have to, are they
Well-
supposed to register that?
They are supposed to register that.
Okay.
We have some that go in and try to make, and I think you've heard me use this phrase before, mini motels out of a single-family house. Just because it's a short-term rental does not give them the authority to exceed our density allowances within the single family. A single-family house is just that. We're giving them an allowance to rent a room. But it doesn't mean some like we've had where they go inside and start making changes, permitted, usually unpermitted. Now we have fire code violations, health safety situations, and getting out of the house, into the house, the whole 9 yards. And, we had one that, report to the green door, the red door, the purple door, that's your apartment, and it's all in a single-family house. We got 4 or 5 cars out on the front lawn. About the time you think you've heard it all, you haven't. So that's what we're up and battling, and Corey and them are doing a great job on getting those registered. And people now understand that we will come after them on this. That's the only thing I know that gets action, is to come after them. We've taken several of them. As a matter of fact, Wednesday morning, we have one going to the code enforcement board, to the magistrate. So that's the only way I know to take care of it. We're trying to be fair, but we're also, it's the old give me an inch, I'll take a mile routine, or it's catch me if you can for a lot of them. And I'm just being very blunt with you. That's what we're up against.
Thanks. Sounds like you're on it
We are,
as much as you can.
And it's drastically affecting our single-family neighborhoods. Not for the good.
Right. Thanks.
All right, our next date, our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for August the 5th. And with that, we are adjourned.